Hi, everyone, and welcome to the QuitCast. My name is Becca. We're here today in the middle of our Burnout Recovery series. And I know the title is a little weird, right? So let me explain where that title comes from. There was a comedy bit that Jerry Seinfeld did a while ago, where he would do the "what's with that guy" thing. And right in the middle of that bit, he would say, like that guy who's driving down the road and he's got a mattress on the top of his car. He always has one arm out the car with his hand on the mattress and he's looking around like, I got it. I got it. And the joke, of course, I mean, I do not deliver it like Seinfeld does. And you should go watch him do it if you get a chance, because it is pretty funny just to watch the sarcasm where everyone knows the guy in the car does not got the mattress, but he thinks he does on some level. And that arm out on top of the mattress, the hand there, the thinking, of course, being, let me do everything I can do to make sure that this mattress doesn't fly off, but he's not holding on to it. Like, this is not his work, his job. And so often in this industry, authors are doing that in their career. They're careening down the highway. They've got a mattress strapped to the top of their car, and the mattress is their career. And the thing that's keeping the mattress from flying away is not anything that they're doing, but somehow they still feel like, I have so much control over this. I'm the one who's doing this. And then when they get to the destination, they often think, yeah, look at me. I had it all along. See, Becca? And what's interesting from a systemic point of view about this is, if you think about all the factors outside the car, all the things that are making the car work inside or work outside, or things that are keeping the mattress on or keeping it from flying off, there are so many hundreds of factors of things that are happening to either make that mattress stay on or fly off. But so often we'll hear people say, like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And yet those of us who think more systemically are like, well, what about all these different factors that might impact it? Or what about the systems that you can't control, et cetera? And so often when we're thinking about burnout, so that's one piece, right? Is that we think we have a lot more control over our career than we do. We are not always aware, and most of us are never aware of all the different things that can potentially impact book sales and releases and career trajectories. And this isn't even to touch stuff that we already know about, things like how Amazon acts that day, whether or not Facebook ads shut down. Like, those are the factors we know about. I'm talking about the little things that we don't know about, like sociological things that grow in a population over time and change, comments that get taken internally and cemented in the brains of thousands and thousands and thousands of people that can change the way that we act. Like, we don't understand the way that an entire global society or an entire population of people or an entire culture or subculture can change, because it's been changing all along, right? And so, like, all of these factors influence the way that our platforms grow or don't grow. And then in addition to that, so there's all the sociological factors and the large scale sort of cosmic context, capital C factors. And then you have the individual system factors, like my individual life, the choices of the people around me, the jobs that my family are caught up in, and the jobs that I might be caught up in, the subcultures that I'm a part of, the volunteer jobs that I do. Like, all of these pieces impact every single part of our lives. And so many of us are unaware of them. It's one of the reasons, by the way, that we coach the way we do at the BFA. We intentionally try to pick apart those systems, or at least that's what I love doing. Other coaches kind of either are already like it or pick it up from me because I get so obsessed by it. But all of the different things that can potentially have an impact on what we do, including, of course, personality wiring, which is the biggest one that we talk about the most often because it's the one we often ignore. But we also ignore things like the way that our family system is operating, the way that our job system is operating, the way that our neighborhood system is operating, the way that our local culture system and not national culture and things like that. We want to ignore all those things because we want to pretend that they don't have an impact on us, or we want them not to have an impact on us, or we don't think they do. But in reality, we're all just people hurtling down the highway with our hands on the mattress, being like, I'm in control of all of this, and I have all of it. And the problem with that, so that's the systemic piece of it. And we talk about that fairly often. But the problem with that is when it comes to burnout and burnout recovery, it's often those individual systems or the collective or cosmic systems that are the reasons that we burn out. And I know we've talked about at least the pandemic side of this in the past, where we say the most common thing that would happen, let's say June, July, August of 2020, was that people would come to us and they'd be like, Becca, I'm not writing. Like, what's going on here? And I'm like, hello, it's a like global pandemic. How can you not see it? Or they'll start with, I know it's a pandemic, but I can't write and I don't know why. And I'm like, wait, before the but is the important part. And that's how we started saying, like, before the but, before the but. So when you try to say it can't possibly be this thing, but I should be able to do it anyway, or whatever, we're constantly questioning the premise of that. Like, why should you be able to anyway? Why would you assume that large factor systems would not have an impact on your decisions? Because you don't want them to, right? Like, so that's understandable. And that's kind of where we get to in those coaching calls. But ultimately, it's the before the but stuff that is important. I know most writers don't sell, but why am I not selling? I know this happens, but why is this not happening for me? And I'm like, you can't just ignore all that stuff that happens before the but, because when you ignore before the but, you end up stopping your brain from processing what is actually the real cause of what's happening. And I think so often we want to go to this place, especially those of us who are wired to be highly driven. We want to go to this place where we're like, well, I'm in control of this whole thing, and I'm just going to control all of the elements and all the factors that I can to get myself out of this or to stop this from happening. And sometimes there is no stopping it. Sometimes because the things that cause it are so systemic and have so many multiple factors. And of the, let's say 100, although there's far more than 100, but of the 100 potential factors that could impact the way that I get my book done or the way that I recover from burnout, both of those happen. Both of those are equally the same. Out of 100, I maybe have control over 5 of those or 4, because sometimes even the ones I think I have control over, like how hard I work, I don't have control over. And for people who are used to control, this is the most difficult thing to internalize. How do I reckon with the 95 or 90 or 85 or 99 factors that I don't have control over? How do I reckon with that lack of ability to control things? And I realized that as a connectedness, like, I'm very, very high. It's my number 2 strength. And part of what this strength encourages in my thinking is that knowledge of how big the system is and how much we are all connected and how all of what we do impacts what everyone else does, uh, how my freedom impacts everyone else's freedom, how my pain impacts everyone else's pain, things like that. Like, connectedness people are very conscious of how connected we are and how influenced we are by what happens everywhere. And there's no outside issue. And that is basically the connectedness slogan. So our brains think this way. Strategic ideation might produce this as well, context sometimes, but connectedness is the primary way that I come by it. So I know that I am more likely to be comfortable with just how little control I have over so many things. And yet I have strengths that make me want to be in control of things. So I do feel this from the inside. But what I'm trying to get across today is that how we handle burnout recovery is often a reflection of how we handle success and failure in our regular life, like when things are just careening along normally. because the more in control I believe I am, the more I have that attitude of like, I got it, I'm in control here, the more we ignore the factors that might be causing us to spin out of control. And then when we do spin out, we don't we can't reconcile with why that happened and be okay with it. So we spend a lot of time spinning additionally, trying to find places that we can control. And too often we're worried about things we can't control. But what I want to focus on is what can I actually control? So, yes, not everybody's going to be comfortable with Becca saying, like, there's 99 things you can't control out of 100. Not everybody's going to be comfortable with that. But if you want to think you're more in control than you actually are, that's actually fine with me. I don't care, because I know from because it's not what I believe that's important. It's what you believe that's important. So if you want to ignore 1 out of 99, that's fine. But let's say even 50-50, there are things that you can't control, and there are things that you think you control that you can't, like how hard you work, like whether or not you procrastinate, like whether or not you're pressure prompted, like whether or not you're internally or externally motivated. There are a lot of things that you cannot control, that you can't change. And so accepting those things is really, really important, especially when we're talking about burnout recovery. So the reason I wanted to do this particular discussion, even though I know it's going to be a hard one, is because we need to have a frank conversation about, you can't do this alone. You can't do this alone. And I have recorded this video 3 times now. And every single time I've recorded it, I have said, you can get help from anywhere. It doesn't matter who you get help from. And even as I record this now, I'm uncomfortable with saying this. So I want to acknowledge how uncomfortable this makes me, because I do not like making videos that make people feel like they have to reach out to us in order to get help. I don't actually believe that we're the only people who can solve problems. I don't think that we're the only coaches who can help anyone. And I don't ever want to come across as believing that. But in this particular case, I do think we are the best people to reach out to for this particular kind of support. So if you're still watching these burnout recovery videos and you haven't yet attended one of our free coaching sessions, which we're going to do here in about a week, and I'll put a link in the show notes. If you haven't attended our free coaching, if you haven't been on our Patreon, if you haven't been on our Facebook page, like our public Facebook page, if you're not on our newsletter in one of those places, on the Patreon, we have small group and individual coaching as well. If you're not in one of those places yet and you are still looking for help in burnout recovery, please come and find us and get support, because there's something about the perspective that helps us when we're in these situations. And even as I'm saying this, I feel so much better saying, please come and find us, because there are actually ways to get both cheap and free help from us in terms of we have a lot of free resources on the newsletter. Obviously, on the YouTube channel, we give a lot of stuff away. We have a lot of free resources in our Facebook groups. We have a lot of free opportunities on our Facebook page for coaching. And then if you want to invest in the individualized stuff, then you usually do have to come and pay for that. But I do think it's worth it. But I feel better about saying that because perspective is key. It's so important in burnout recovery to get perspective. And we try to provide as many general guidelines on this YouTube channel as we can. And the coaches will sometimes get together and be like, how can we help this more? How can we do this? Because we really do want to provide, and we know not everyone can afford paying money to get a coaching session or to get a therapy session from a therapist. We know that that is true. And we do try to give away as much as we can, but sometimes you have to invest in the process as well. And so this is my one time that I'm going to say, I do think it's worth coming to us specifically to get help and support and perspective with this if you can't figure it out on your own. Some of you can figure it out on your own, and you already have, and we see it in the comments. We're so grateful for that. But if you can't figure it out on your own and you do need help, I highly recommend that you come and get coaching, because the perspective in this situation is the thing that often makes a difference. And am I going to go back or not? Am I going to be in burnout again? Am I ever going to get out of this burnout rotation or cycle or, whatever torture, because it can feel like torture. And sometimes you do need the help to get out of that place. The reason perspective is important is because if you're the person with their hand on the mattress and the mattress flies off and you do not get where you want to go, knowing how that happened and why it happened is super, super important. And I can give some general guidelines, which I have in this recovery series, and I did in the burnout series, and I do in the burnout book. And I can give general guidelines, but there is nothing quite like an individualized person sitting across from you, trusting that you are correct in your assessment of how things happen, and then providing perspective given what your wiring is like. There is just nothing like it. And like I said, I don't love saying that because I don't want to create a sense of urgency for you to come and get coaching from us. I don't like that. But I do think that if you are at the end of your rope and you don't know where else to turn, you need to come and find us if you need to get some coaching. So please do consider that, because the 99 factors that you don't have control over, sometimes someone else needs to point those out to you and say, this happened, that happened. You're not responsible for this. You couldn't have helped this. How about we come up with a different plan to figure out how to get where you want to go that doesn't include this kind of burnout speed? Or how do we help you in the recovery to make energy pennies? How do you particularly make energy pennies? That's a question we get a lot. It's like, well, I can give you the general guidelines, but I need to be able to talk to you individually sometimes to be able to hear, how is that strength acting? How does that combine with this one? What cancels this out? Like, the work that we do it's not the same as, like, it's not magic, but it's not the same as like, I am an INFJ and therefore this is how I work, because that's so inaccurate for the outliers. And again, outliers, when you're talking 38% of the population is an outlier in those particular, like in an archetypal system, then being on the outsides of those means that this isn't going to help me at all. And now I'm also wondering why it's not helping me, because this is my thing. And one of the things that strengths does is it reduces the number of outliers. It's not that there are zero. That's super important. And that's why we do individualized stuff as well, is to tinker with some of that stuff and see how they react with each other. But you reduce the number of outliers that happen. So if you think about the 25 million people who have taken the strengths test that have also taken something like Myers-Briggs, 38% of 25 million is a huge, huge, huge number of people. There's a high likelihood that you are in that outlier for which the archetype does not work for you. That's the downside of archetypes, right? It's why we have struggled with producing archetypes, because it feels like there's such a limited capacity for how archetypes can work. But the more individualized you can get, the more we can combine all of these things together, the more we can help. Because knowing what I can and can't change about myself, knowing what I am and am not in control of, is the most important information you can have when you're facing a struggle of some kind, especially burnout recovery. So I'm going to encourage you, if you have not yet, if you are at the end of your rope, please come on the Patreon. Please join at the insiders or addicts level, I think it is, or the insiders level. Insiders level is where we do our topical calls, and we have some really good topical calls on this. We do 2 a month. Sometimes we do 4. And then the addicts level is where our micro coaching sessions are, which is 10 minutes in a group with an individual coach. You get 10 minutes, and then each person in the group gets 10 minutes. They're about 90 minutes long usually. And you do that, you get that once a month. So you have the opportunity to talk to somebody individually at least once a month, on the Patreon, if you're at that level or higher. And then of course, higher than that, we have our individual coaching sessions. And so there are other opportunities above that as well. Please do come and find us if you need the help. We want to support you if we can. Like, if there's something we can do, we want to do it. And like I said, I'll put the link to the coaching session that we're going to do, the live free coaching online. We tend to talk about burnout quite a bit on those live coaching sessions because we're ending our 4 for 30 challenge on around the 7th of March. That's roughly when that video is going to happen, is when we're ending that particular challenge. Usually we do them earlier, like around the 1st or the 2nd of the month. And you can go back and watch those as well, because we do a lot of live coaching on those videos. So please do come and find us in some way. Please come and get support, because that feeling of I've got it is so often what keeps us cycling back and cycling back. And we really sometimes just need the help. If you've already figured out what your burnout recovery road will look like, that's great. If you haven't, please come and find us. The next video is going to be the last one in this particular burnout recovery series. I hope you have enjoyed this. We did pick a winner for the switch from the last video, and they have been contacted. Hopefully they'll be getting the switch here pretty soon. I'm really excited for that. We're also giving away a switch during the 4 for 30, which is happening on our Discord channel, the 4 for 30 challenge during February, to celebrate our kickoff of the 4th year of the QuitCast. We're really excited about that. We hope that this has been helpful and that you have enjoyed listening to this. Please like and share. Please subscribe. Please send this video to people who, if you hear them talking about burnout recovery and support, please send it to them. Help other people figure out what's going on in their burnout recovery. This is super, super important for us to get back to a stable place as an industry, because we're going to keep burning out if we don't come to a place of security together. And I know that's my connectedness, most connectedness thing I've said all day. I'll be all right. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in the next QuitCast. Bye.